you, Ellen. So first of all, welcome to the March membership meeting of the Sacramento Valley chapter of the California Native Plant Society. My name is Ellen Pimentel, and I am the current president of the chapter, and we're so happy to have you all here. And I see a lot of familiar names in the participants list, so I'm really happy about that. I want to read the CNPS mission statement really quickly for anyone that's new to this. So the purpose of the California Native Plant Society is to conserve California native plants and their natural habitats and increase understanding, appreciation, and horticultural use of native plants. So we hold these chapter meetings 9 times a year. Currently they're via Zoom, and they're free and open to the public. They occur on the second Wednesday of each month, except July and August and December. And Ellen Z already told you about the next meeting that's coming up. And if you're ever wondering, that will always be on our homepage, SacValleyCNPS.org, and with a link to register. So with that out of the way, I'm going to share my screen and then start my presentation. Oh. Ellen Z, you might need to help me with this. It says host disabled participant screen sharing, which is odd because I should be a panelist. So let's see.
You'll have to tell me again what you just said.
So when I click share screen, it says host disabled participant screen sharing.
It's not allowing you to share. Let's see, I think I can promote you. Let me promote you. Okay, you're now the co-host.
Okay.
Yes. So see if now it will work. You're now the co-host.
There we go. Okay. Share that screen. Share and.
There you go. I see your share screen.
Can you see it now?
Yeah. Yeah, you're up.
Sweet. All right. Thanks for bearing with us, everybody. Yeah. So let's see. Ellen did a great introduction for me, so I think we can just dive right in. I'm going to tell you tonight about what our Social Justice Committee has been up to and how we think that you can help if you'd like. So just a quick outline so you kind of know where we're going. I'll give introductions. I'll introduce you to the committee. We'll go over a few definitions, some background information, and then I'll describe our initiatives and how you can help. And then I'll leave plenty of time at the end for questions. So this is the Social Justice Committee. These are our main members. Myself, Chris Lewis, who you might know from Elderberry Farms, Julie Clements, who is our art market director, and Nellie Zapian, who is our Stockton subchapter representative. And just, I want to point out that we're all volunteers, and we all have a shared interest around native plants, and so that's how we're coming into this work through that lens. And we know that, you know, we don't have all the answers, and we are still learning, and we see this as a collaborative process with our members and the community. So we're excited to share what we've been doing and what we want to do, and hopefully, you know, bring some of you all in to join us. So I'm going to go through these fairly quickly. I think probably if you're attending this talk, you're familiar with a lot of these terms already, but just to make sure, you know, we're all kind of on the same page and speaking the same language, I'm going to go over just a few definitions. You'll hear me using the acronym BIPOC a lot, and that's just shorthand for Black, Indigenous, and people of color. And the reason I'm talking about these groups is because they have been historically and currently are affected by racial inequity within institutions, structures, and systems in our society. Racial inequity is defined by Dr. Kendi as when racial groups are not standing on approximately equal footing. For example, BIPOC Americans experience nature deprivation at 3 times the rate of white Americans. That's just one of many examples. I thought that was kind of relevant to what we're talking about today. And then social justice. So if you put this term into your favorite search engine, you'll come up with all kinds of definitions. But the ones here are the ones that resonate with me and the work that we do or want to do in the committee. So it's justice in terms of the distribution of wealth, opportunities, and privileges. It is fair treatment of all people, including respect for the rights of minority groups and equitable distribution of resources. And it's really important that it includes intentional actions and advocacy to enact meaningful change. So social justice principles are clearly embedded in the larger environmental movement. Environmental justice as a movement, I think you could say it started gaining momentum in the early 90s, and Indigenous leaders have been at the forefront of this movement, and it's evolved over time and it's still going strong. And actually it's codified in our state law. So the state of California defines environmental justice as the fair treatment of people of all races, cultures, and income with respect to the development, adoption, implementation, and enforcement of environmental laws, regulations, and policies. So basically, public agencies have to examine impacts of social justice on, like in secret documents, for example. And then in 2020, a new term emerged, which is intersectional environmentalism. It kind of came about in response to the growing climate justice movement and social justice movements and the recognition that all of these are intertwined. So intersectionality, to start with, is a term some of you probably have heard, defined by Kimberly Crenshaw. It basically means that various identities are intertwined and affect how individuals navigate the world and society, and it recognizes how the world provides privileges for certain identities and oppresses other identities. And intersectional environmentalism was defined by Leah Thomas, who's the founder of intersectionalenvironmentalist.com and the Dismantled podcast, and she defines it as an inclusive version of environmentalism that advocates for both the protection of people and the planet. It identifies the ways in which injustices are happening to marginalized communities and the earth and how that's interconnected. And the goal is to dismantle systems of oppression in the environmental movement. Okay, so that's the definitions. I'm going to go over a few background slides, and again, this is kind of just, specifically to show you what the Social Justice Committee is responding to. And so we need to look at, what the environmental movement looks like today. I think a whole talk could be made out of these background slides, but I'm not an expert in it. So I'm trying to summarize a lot of information just to make sure we all kind of know where we're coming from. So first of all, we need to recognize that the way humans have settled in this state and the country is a result of discrimination and racism in large part. And the way that we've protected natural areas is a result of discriminatory ideals and practices. The history of public lands in particular is rooted in violence and stealing land from Native Americans. And historically, BIPOC have been excluded from public lands and natural places. And you might wonder why I'm bringing up, the past. Why should we dwell on that? But I think we have to acknowledge, the history of our country, and especially related to parks and public lands, if we want to understand why things are the way they are today, and to be able to make meaningful changes into the future. So, And we have seen, last summer especially, that BIPOC continue to be the subject of violence and intimidation while out in nature. For example, the birder and Audubon board member, Christian Cooper in Central Park, was harassed while he was just out birding. Also, BIPOC are underrepresented in mainstream environmental conservation groups. And finally, BIPOC and low-income communities are more affected by environmental pollution and climate change impacts. So a little bit more about some of these bullet points. First, I wanted to talk about the nature gap. So this is the idea that certain communities live in nature-deprived places, and nature deprivation is defined as a lack of access to nature. So studies show that a majority of BIPOC communities live in nature-deprived places, a majority of low-income communities live in nature-deprived places, and together low-income communities of color live mostly in nature-deprived places. And this has consequences. So this leads to more illnesses such as asthma. You get urban heat islands, which are harmful, worse mental health conditions without access to the outdoors, and higher healthcare costs. And then you have the use of natural areas. So as I mentioned in the first background slide, there is a reluctance for some folks to go out and use nature. So there's a lot of information out there that you can look into if you're interested in this. I just pulled a quote from one book by Carolyn Finney that the racist history and the exclusion from natural areas just leads to people not wanting to be there. They don't feel safe, they don't feel welcome. Also, a lot of our natural areas are not really geared towards what different groups of people might want. So for example, there was a couple of surveys done in the city of Houston looking at priorities of residents for the park system. So the first survey went out to through the city, and they mostly got back majority white middle class respondents. And these respondents identified connectivity of the parks as a #1 priority. So after those results came back, Rice University did a follow-up survey specifically targeting African Americans and Latinx residents. And what those respondents prioritized was new and improved amenities, recreation facilities, infrastructure, safety infrastructure like lights, better equipment, more regular maintenance, and in fact, connectivity was last on their list of priorities. So, and then again, in-depth interviews following up on this second survey, researchers found that most African Americans respondents to the survey simply did not want to go to parks or natural areas because of the history in that area, racial discrimination, and concerns about their safety. And also many of them just didn't grow up going to the parks. So they, because they couldn't, their parents and grandparents couldn't. Anyway, let's move on. I feel like I spent a lot of time on that one. This stuff is, I mean, like I said, you could just delve in deep to any one of these things. So, okay, representation. So BIPOC are proportionally underrepresented in most environmental groups. We have studies that show that. And what I'm showing here is data from a study, an ongoing study by Green 2.0, which is an independent advocacy campaign. And this is voluntarily reported data from most of the mainstream environmental NGOs and foundations. And they just released their 2020 report a little while ago. And so even though, people of color are at least 36% of the US population, it's probably more now. I think that's an old number. They only represent, 22 to 26% of the full-time staff, senior staff, and board members. And it is very slowly improving, which is a good thing if you look at those lines, but there's still a lot of work to do there. And I think most of us have observed anecdotally that the groups that we're in and CNPS is majority white and probably middle class. So, I don't think this probably comes as a surprise to anybody. Okay, just a couple more background slides. So climate change and heat islands. So BIPOC are proportionally more affected by environmental issues such as flooding due to climate change, exposure to pollutants, and heat islands. If you don't know what heat islands are, basically they're areas of more intense development, so areas such as downtown centers that have more asphalt and concrete and hold on to heat more, and basically, that causes a whole slew of problems. So that increases energy consumption for cooling, which leads to more air pollution and greenhouse gases. It's bad for human health and comfort. It impairs water quality, and it disproportionately overlaps with low-income and BIPOC communities. I think I didn't show a slide here, but basically there's a correlation between more highly developed areas and BIPOC and low-income communities across the country. This is a countrywide survey. And also, tree cover mitigates heat islands, but tree cover is lower in downtown areas and areas of BIPOC communities overall. Okay, moving forward to summer 2020. A lot of you probably saw this statement that the California Native Plant Society put out. I just have a little excerpt here and that wonderful graphic from Coyote Brush Studios. So in the immediate aftermath of the harassment of Christian Cooper in Central Park, the murders of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Tony McDade, Ahmaud Arbery, and others, and the acknowledgement that there was an unfair and inequitable hardship and health concern impacts on BIPOC communities due to COVID, CNPS, like many other conservation organizations, released a statement in support of the Black Lives Matter movement. And basically, you can read it still on their webpage, and you can read this excerpt here, but it's basically recognizing that structural inequality and institutionalized racism prevents us at large from working together to build a more equitable and resilient society. And that, in fact, indeed, in California, this is a problem, and far too many of our residents suffer injustices and are excluded from opportunities due to racist policies and actions. And so at the end of the statement, CNPS invited members to join the conversation, to take real and sustained action, and to make the future better. So our chapter was really inspired by this call to action, and we promptly formed the Social Justice Committee in July of 2020 in order to put that statement into action within our region, and obviously within the realm of native plants and their habitat. So our mission statement is to cultivate equity and inclusion in our chapter and the communities we serve, so that we may all enjoy a just and safe chapter that is as inclusive and diverse as our region. Okay, so that was enough background and setup. So now I'm going to talk about our different initiatives. So we've kicked around a lot of ideas thus far, and I've kind of organized them into these categories here, but we're very open to expanding and adding initiatives with member support. I just thought this made the most sense. So first I'll talk about community outreach and partnerships. Then I'll talk about environmental justice advocacy, and finally member projects and speakers. So for community outreach and partnerships, in the fall, ahead of the fall 2020 online plant sale, we did a neighborhood seed giveaway. our committee member, Julie, walked around the neighborhoods of Rancho Cordova that kind of surround Elderberry Farms and handed out poppy seeds and coupons for plants. And we would have liked to have done more events like this, but we were a bit hindered with the pandemic and wildfire smoke and just same things everybody else is dealing with. So we do hope to expand this program or this type of outreach to include not just seeds, but maybe some native plant starts and maybe even some sort of mobile nursery so that we can go out to neighborhoods that might have folks that wouldn't necessarily come out to a plant sale. And I'll be talking a little bit more about a project in this vein in a few slides. Also, Chris Lewis and other members of our chapter's Homegrown Habitat Committee are working with the Sacramento Tree Foundation in their Neighborhoods program, which is a community-led movement to improve neighborhoods and bring neighbors together through tree planting and care of the trees. So we're working with Sac Tree Foundation in this program to promote planting native trees. And we hope to provide the program with native companion plants and to assist with planting those. So, we kind of, again, just starting this, so hopefully we'll have more to share about that soon. Teaching materials. These are in progress. We're currently creating some videos. Again, this just kicked off. So we're going to create some videos that will teach about native plants and their habitat, and those will be provided free to community members and teachers. And we'd like to expand this to include other types of media like self-guided nature walks or maybe zines or artwork, anything that we can kind of share for free that will teach and be accessible. And finally, on this in this initiative, so our website is about to be redesigned, the SacValley website, and we are going to have a dedicated social justice page on that updated website, and that will have updates on everything that we're doing, all our activities, contact people, and links to learning resources and all of the references and more if you want to learn more. Okay, environmental justice advocacy. So something our chapter already does pretty well is provide comments regarding native plant conservation and landscaping recommendations for public planning documents. So for example, city plans, development plans. And we've already written a few letters in support of recent regional and local climate change planning policies. So, because climate change, pollution, and heat islands disproportionately impact BIPOC communities, and use of natural areas is generally low among BIPOC communities, as I explained earlier. Commenting on these types of public documents is a natural tie-in to the goals of the Social Justice Committee. And I think we as a chapter can probably expand our focus in our comments to include environmental justice issues, such as improved access and more appropriate amenities in natural areas that would make them more appealing to BIPOC users, and targeting tree plantings in urban heat centers, things like this. So I think you can help if you want to, bring our attention to any relevant public documents that we should be commenting on, or if you want to make comments yourself in this vein. That's all good. Okay, so member projects and speakers. This will be I think the most, this is kind of the most fleshed out initiatives, and I think the most exciting. It's probably why most of you tuned in. So we have a project we're kicking off called Home Growers for Social Justice, and I'm giving this its own slide, so I'll talk about that in just a minute. We also our chapter would like to sponsor BIPOC college students with student memberships to CNPS and provide mentorship within our chapter based on their specific interests. So, you know, anybody can go and look at this What We Do brochure on our website. I've been plugging it the last few meetings, but this is just a, you know, kind of a long list of all the different kinds of things we do at the chapter, from conservation to gardening to teaching kids to writing in the newsletter. And lots of things that folks can get involved with. And so we would like to kind of match up members with these students to facilitate a relationship and kind of bring them into the fold, and you know, not just give them a membership, but like bring them in as full-fledged members. So if you know of any college students that would be interested in this, you can reach out to Nellie. Or if you want to mentor someone as a chapter member, if you're interested in that, let us know. And then finally, for chapter meetings, we would like to have more presentations and maybe panel discussions and guest speakers related to environmental or intersectional environmentalism, climate action, access to nature, BIPOC experiences in nature, just, you know, all this stuff that I've been talking about. And we do have a speaker stipend that we can offer folks. So, you know, if you know of anyone who would be great to speak to us, please let Julie know. Or you can contact any of us, but these are the folks kind of heading up these initiatives. All right, so Homegrowers for Social Justice. More information about this has just been posted on our webpage. I think it's on the home page, so hopefully it should be easy to find. I didn't have a chance to look at it because Chris just got it uploaded right before my presentation. So basically, home growing is actually something that members used to do for our native plant sales. I just learned this reading up on the history of our chapter. So the idea is that volunteers will help grow local native plants for us to give away to people in underserved communities. So maybe in some of those, you know, plant giveaways that we want to do, or maybe other things that we think of. Elderberry Farms will provide starter plants, sterilized pots, potting media, and instructions to volunteers, and then volunteers will provide growing space, water, and attention to grow out the plants. And then the grown plants can be made available for our events. And this is a picture of Julie's little mini greenhouse, and you can see you can grow quite a lot of plants in a small space. So, and you know, I know I like propagating plants, and sometimes it's a little much. So it's good to be able to give it away. I don't necessarily have space for everything I grow. So if this is interesting to you, contact Chris and help her get this kicked off. And just to recap, on a personal note, you know, I strongly feel that everyone can benefit from being in nature and appreciating native plants and their habitat, which you all probably already agree with. And I also believe that this is not something that should be accessible to only, you know, some people in our communities. I think the more folks we have in our society that understand and appreciate and feel comfortable in natural areas, the better off, you know, for all of us and for the protection and care of these natural areas. So, and I think, you know, if you're, you know, inclined to be a part of CNPS, you're probably inclined to be a helper, and you understand that serving others benefits yourself as much as the people you're serving. So if you're excited or intrigued about any of these initiatives, if you have more ideas that you can help us implement, if you have some community connections that we can partner with or know of potential speakers, please reach out to us. Our contacts are on our webpage, and we'd love to hear from you. So I know I talked really fast and I got through this really fast, but I've got plenty of time for questions if anybody has any questions.
So I did get a question, and let's see, it says, are you already approaching local college instructors to ask if they have students interested in membership, or if they are interested in showing videos in class or for extra credit?
We have reached out. Oh, sorry, was that it?
I just want to know if you've already communicated with some of the college instructors.
Yeah, we have already reached out to, I think, most of the local colleges in Sacramento and Stockton, but I don't know who specifically. You can contact Nellie to find out who exactly she's talked to, but that was, I think that was in the fall, so it's a whole new semester now, and I think it's worth following up with those people that we've already talked to, and then I think too, if there's specific people that are likely to have those types of students, maybe we didn't reach out to them yet. I'm not sure. So if you have anyone in mind, please let us know, and we'd be happy to contact them.
And I know that I'm retired from UC Davis, and they have a program at the art room there, this Learning by Leading, and that the woman who's a coordinator for that program is I have to remember, BIPOC, and she's been very active in this sort of experience, and they even did their own program, getting Hispanic, particularly young women, to go hiking because they were afraid to go hiking because they didn't know if they'd be welcome. And they didn't know what was out there. And so they did a whole project with one of their students. So, and I can put you, Ellen P, or can you put up the communication emails for Nellie and Julie on the website somewhere? Or
yes, on our contacts page, we should all be up there. Just
okay.
Look.
Because then I'll just send that information directly to them that they should. She just had babies, so she probably won't be back for a little while, but I'm sure there's somebody covering for her, and they're very actively involved in these kinds of activities. So that'd be a good connection.
Yeah, and I know it's been hard too with the pandemic and distance learning, and so I'm not surprised that we're still working on this. And we don't have.
So
Sorry, go ahead.
Is there anybody else? I don't have anything in chat. I have some. One more just came into the Q&A. Hold on.
Yeah.
Answered 3, open 7. I'm from Woodland Community College, working on an assignment per my botany class. Let's see, I can't see the end of it. Amanda Gonzalez. If you could do that in the chat, it cut off your message and you might have exceeded the number of letters or something. But Amanda she's at Woodland Community, and she had a question. And then there's one from Justin Daniel. Hello from San Diego, CNPS. Our chapter has partnered with our local Audubon and local residents to support seed libraries with native seed options. There are challenges, but they have become quite popular very quickly. The neighborhoods where projects like this are initiated, the response has been robust and brings in new neighbors as new members and curious helpers. One of the challenges has always been funding. What are some of the ways your chapter has been able to fund the Social Justice Committee? Grants may be available and easily approved by Brock. I don't know what Brock is.
Thank you, Justin. Thanks for being here and for that comment. We, as a committee, we presented some of these initial ideas to the chapter board in August, and we were given some funding out of the chapter budget. And I mean, it's been tough to do a lot that we want to do with the pandemic and everything. So I don't think we've technically spent any of that budget. And we're just volunteering our time. So yeah, that's good to know if we need some extra funding from grants and things. I know that I guess we sort of met in the chapter council meeting this weekend virtually. So yeah, let's stay in touch, please. I would appreciate that.
And then Jocelyn writes, this is wonderful. I'm glad our CNPS chapter is doing this. Sounds like a great initiative. I look forward to getting involved. And thank you for presenting. And another anonymous person is a student taking a botany course, and their professor told them about this Zoom meeting and to watch it. Another Jenny said, I'm a member of North Coast chapter. Love these ideas. I'm particularly intrigued by the home growers for social justice. Again, asking, is this internally funded by your chapter? And will you be soliciting donations?
We're not, I mean, I think we'll always take donations. You can do that on our website, but I think we'll be using our initial committee funding for this. And we're just getting started. So we'll see. Chris Lewis might have more answers for you too about exactly how we're funding this.
So here's a good contact. Professor Melissa Ha, HA, from Woodland Community College, offered extra credit to her students for attending this meeting.
Oh.
So that's nice. You've already got their attention. And then pre-COVID, were there many hikes of exploration that happened out in the community of plants? Would you like to address that?
Yeah, so we do have a dedicated field trips chair. His name is John. He's wonderful, and he did regular field trips for our chapter, and those, had to pause during COVID. So we are very excited to get those up and running again as soon as it's safe. And I would like to perhaps, maybe make a BIPOC day of field trips, or somehow make those a little bit more inclusive and accessible. So that'll be announced as soon as we're doing those again. We'll definitely let everybody know.
And Esmeralda asks, do you have existing partnerships with the Sacramento Latino Outdoors chapter?
We do not. We would like to.
Because that would be good to one group to outreach to the other, perhaps.
Yes. Thank you for that.
Okay. And then Chris Lewis says she is reaching out to a few professors in colleges, which we probably knew.
Yeah, Kristen.
She's a very busy, hardworking gal.
Chris is busy, so we tried to give some stuff for other folks to do, but.
Okay, that's all I've got in the Q&A so far. For some reason, the chat's not working. So I will make a list. Somebody said my chat's not working. I'm making a list of some problems we had, and we'll keep working on that physical part of this.
I see that my cat made an appearance that I didn't notice.
No, there's a recycling every 23 seconds kind of high-pitched noise. That might be an air conditioner or refrigerator or something.
I think it's our computer fan. Sorry about that.
Yeah, and it's one of those things that you don't hear because you're used to it. I have a lamp that goes white, but so I'm gonna keep gathering all this information, and as we'll just keep trying to improve these guys. So hang in there with us, and we're just still learning.
I see Esmeralda made a few really important points that not only are there issues with access to public lands, but private land ownership as well. And there's direct correlations with the historic redlining practices. That's absolutely true. And this is all stuff that you can, like I said, delve into if you're interested in learning more. Okay, now some of these are the same as the ones I see in the Q&A. So yeah.
Esmeralda sounds like she wants to work with you, so you may be hearing from her.
We'd be happy to have you.
See if I can.
Inspiring Connections Outdoors. We don't have any connections that I know of with that group, so I'm going to write that one down too. Thank you. I know I did reach out to Outdoor Afro this summer. They seem to mostly be Bay Area based though. So if there's similar groups like that in the Sacramento area that I don't know about, I'd love to know about those.
There is one plant question. It says, is purslane a native plant in California? And I assume they mean purslane, like that weed in your yard. And I think it is native, isn't it,
It
personally?
is. Yeah.
And it just occurs in your yard and is edible. And somebody out there correct me if I'm wrong, because
I mean, yeah, assuming that's the one they're talking about.
yeah, it's purslane. I assume they mean purslane. But yeah, you can cook it up apparently. Well, eat it when it's young. I think those things get really bitter when they're old. You know, if they get so they flower and seed.
And I see a comment from Kelty Carew, who's just moved here from the Midwest and has an art, permaculture, and sustainable agriculture background, which is very cool. He's asking if we might get involved in existing arts and music events to reach a wider audience. Yeah, I think that's a great idea. We have participated in kind of local science events, Earth Day and things like that. It was obviously, didn't happen last year after we formed this committee. So I think, making sure that our social justice committee is front and center at those kinds of things is a good idea. And yeah, if there's some arts and music events that we should be at, let us know. I think, we all appreciate art and music as well. And that, I think, especially with younger folks, that's kind of, it's just a natural a way to connect. So good idea. Thank you. Dr.
And I stand corrected about the purslane. It's not me. Jocelyn corrected me.
Thank you.
I'm not really a native botanist. I'm a horticulturist. So, but anyway, and so if there's any more, I have 17 on my screen. I don't know about you, Ellen, but I think I covered all of them.
I'll just scroll through too to make sure.
Yeah,
I see a recommendation to reach out to Dr.
So did you do Kelty Carew? Okay, Kelty, thank you for this. Can't wait to get involved. Yeah, you did that one. Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much, Ellen. And thank you for everybody for coming. And it went pretty well this